Greetings and welcome to another edition of
Positronic.
I'm Barry P. Cook, and I'm here to review Season 3, Episode 12 of Star Trek Discovery, entitled There Is a Tide. The setup for this episode is that Book and Michael are trying to take back Discovery after it's been taken over by Osiris and the Emerald Chain, as a way for Osiris to get herself inside the Federation Starfleet bubble to negotiate a deal with the Federation, which she ends up doing in a meeting with Admiral Vance. So, as the episode begins, Stamets is refusing, or I guess he did in the end of the last episode. Yeah, in the end of the last episode, Stamets refused to, jump the ship to Starfleet headquarters. And they used some kind of mind control to make him do it. And this was shown in the, previously on Discovery thing that they do at the beginning of each episode. And I thought, if they have mind control, why did they ever have a problem with prisoners trying to escape that penal colony that Michael was in, or that Book was in, rather? I guess with Michael. But why were the prisoners, why did they have to have, like, those, did they have collars on? I don't remember. But they definitely had, like, an explode your head perimeter fence thing. If they can do mind control, why would they need any of that? You know, part of that episode was all about, oh, this guy is bad. He tries to arouse the people to strike, against us and so forth. But if they can do, like, a forced mind control thing, why would that be a problem? I don't know, this didn't make sense. And then, of course, the guy from the season premiere shows up, and I wrote, the second episode of the season, and I wrote, oh, this asshole. And he is an asshole, but that actor does a great job in the part, so it was fun to watch. But, he's talking to Tillie at one point because she has the con, and it's just her hair looks so bad. I know I said a couple of episodes ago that people shouldn't make fun of her appearance, and they shouldn't. I was talking about her weight, and it's really, really bad what people are doing. I had to decline a post in a group that I'm an admin of on Facebook because it was just mocking her size, and I don't think that's right. But her hair is something the producers have control over, and that she has immediate control over, and could just be not awful, and yet it's awful. It doesn't do her any favors, unfortunately. Anyway, minor note. What I want to know is, how did Book catch up to Discovery so fast? And if he can do that, however he did it, then presumably others can travel that way, and that begs the question, why is the scarcity of dilithium, extreme scarcity of dilithium, such a problem, and how did it cause the collapse of the Federation? I've yet to understand that since the beginning when he said there were other ways of FTL travel. And in this, they demonstrated it, and it's like, why, how did the burn, mean, or how is it that the burn meant that the Federation fell apart? It's so stupid. I didn't understand either how Book's ship made it onto Discovery when presumably the shields were up. Although you would, maybe say, well, they were just approaching the Federation bubble, so they dropped them because they had to, or because to not do so would have seemed like they were hostile, aka, the conversation that is had aboard Enterprise when a Reliant is approaching them in Star Trek II. So I wasn't 100% sure about that, but they were being fired upon by Osiris' ship in a sort of show dogfight to make the Federation think Discovery was under attack. So one presumes, in fact she says, he has to shoot a little less powerfully because he will start to chip away at the shields eventually, and we don't want that because we want to steal the ship. We don't want it blown up. So the shields were up. How did Book's ship get into the cargo, through the cargo bay force field? I don't get it. And again, how did the crew of Osiris' ship get aboard Discovery to begin with? That's a question from last episode, but I don't get it. I don't get any of this shields up, shields down, beam through the shields business. I don't know. Then there's a scene where Osira is, talking about, we have to steal this technology so we can access the mycelial network. And so she knows all about it. And I'm trying to figure out, this ship, the Discovery's only been there for a few weeks. She's only encountered it twice. And from that, she discovered that there's a mycelial network? Like, how? And why should we believe that from the pre-Kirk era all the way up through Nemesis, no one else did? I mean, in other words, that was a valid question before, as soon as the drive was introduced. But, now they've shown that she figured it out just by seeing the ship, a couple of times. What? I really don't understand it. And, because, nobody else ever found it. No other species ever figured it out. The Discovery stands will argue, well, maybe they did, but they couldn't use it because the tardigrade DNA is necessary and it's extinct and only, Stamets could do it. And the idea that no one ever found another way to navigate the mycelial network is just stupid. I'm not saying they would have necessarily found a way to recreate tardigrade DNA, but the idea that there's only one way to navigate it and that no one else found another way to navigate it, or that mycelial DNA couldn't be somehow replicated, I mean, it's absurd. And I mean, even Starfleet, I shouldn't say Starfleet, but even Discovery must have had some kind of, Starfleet originally, before the jump to the future, and Discovery as well, must have had some idea about, okay, if something happens to Stamets, how are we going to use this? They must have some plan for reconstituting, a supply of tardigrade DNA at the very least. So I don't understand any of that. We get a little bit of a scene between Book and Burnham where they declare their love for each other. They're in love, apparently. And then, we have Tillie saying, you can let the crew go, I'm acting captain, I'm all the leverage you need. Which I guess is true, but there's really no leverage. Because then Osiris even says to the Admiral, if I release all the hostages, then I won't have any leverage. There's no leverage. The Admiral will try to blow up Discovery if it comes to it. Saving a few crewmen versus keeping what's left of the Federation from being overtaken by the Emerald Chain isn't going to keep him from blowing up Discovery. The Sphere Data might keep him from doing that, but he, just as a point of a concept, he's not going to refrain from trying to blow up Discovery because she has a couple of hostages, if the alternative is letting her have her way with the Federation or Starfleet. That's not going to happen. So that was just dumb of the writers to put a conversation about leverage into this episode. And, speaking of which, because they can't destroy it because of the Sphere Data. And then the question comes up, why did the Sphere Data allow any of this? Allow the Emerald Chain to take over, allow, the Starfleet crew to be held up. Eventually they show up, right? They show up in the bots and they say, we're here to help you. Why didn't they do that from the fucking beginning? Why does it drag on for so long? It's just stupid. At one point, Burnham is back on Discovery and she's running from the bad guys. And I was thinking, why doesn't she take her badge off? That's a potential way for them to discover her presence. So she gets into a Jeffries tube and she uses her badge to send out a distress call. And when no one answers, she calls out to her mom. I mean, I guess you might want to say goodbye to your mom, but I don't know. I just thought that was stupid. And I had to wonder, was she trying to get help from her mom originally? When she first made the call, was that her intention to get help from her mom? I didn't see how that made any sense. I suppose her mother could have brought in the cavalry from whatever they're calling Vulcan these days. I already forgot. I don't know. I just thought that was weird. And then my next note is those little robots can't become attack bots. When I wrote that, I wasn't even talking about the ones on Discovery. I was talking about the ones in Starfleet headquarters. The robots are there. They weren't designed so that they could become attack bots. If they ever had an intruder and they needed help. It's just stupid. Clearly they're capable of it. They do it. They're doing it. They're going to do it on Discovery. And then the bridge crew is using Morse code to communicate with each other, and Tillie talks about how they teach it at the academy on day one. There must have been 100 occasions where Morse code could have been used. In fact, they do use it in Star Trek V, so I don't know, maybe I should have had this complaint then, but there must have been 100 other occasions throughout Star Trek history where Morse code would have come in handy, but they never use it. I don't know. I guess in this case, Star Trek V set the precedent, so what the hell. Then we get into the part where Osiris is talking to Admiral Vance about making peace, and I was thinking, you know, this isn't crazy, because the Federation did make peace with the Klingons, and they did make some kind of peace with the Ferengi, because after season 1 or 2 of Next Gen, you don't see them at odds with each other. You see them coexisting. And, you know, the Nagus visits Deep Space Nine several times, and Quark, of course, has the bar, and Rom works there, and Nog, of course, goes into into Starfleet Academy, so it isn't absurd that they would make peace with the Emerald Chain, so I was glad to see that. Of course, it all gets derailed when Vance says, well, you'd have to be prosecuted for your crimes. Hence, setting up the finale where there's going to be a final fight. But then, there's a scene where, they eventually do discover that Michael's moving around on the ship through her badge. And I was like, you know, she should have foreseen this. And then, she keeps wearing it. Like, you know they found you, why are you still wearing your badge? Ridiculous. Why is Osiris top henchman scientist guy in a wheelchair? It's 900 years after Kirk. Haven't they figured that one out yet? I mean, across the galaxy, or at least in the Alpha Quadrant? I don't know. Just didn't make sense to me. Maybe we'll get some sort of explanation for that. What I want to know about Stamets is, who was he referring to as his kid? It cannot be Adira. He cannot mean Adira. They cannot be saying that he and Dr. Culber have adopted Adira. Because one, they didn't show that, and two, it's stupid. So I hope that's not what he was talking about. But if he wasn't, what other kid has he got? Am I forgetting something? One cool thing that happened is Michael gets herself out of a sticky situation when she's being attacked by one of Osiris' henchmen in like one of the Jeffries tubes. She grabs onto a strap that's tied to like the wall, and she evacuates the air in the Jeffries tube, and gets rid of her attacker, but she has to kind of do one of those Kirk v. Crudge moves.
I have had enough of you!
I thought that was pretty cool. And then they show a quick scene of that attacker from the Emerald Chain floating out in space, and the computer's trying to locate her, and you can see her on the view screen, and I'm like, she's a space-sickle. That was pretty cool. I wrote down here that I like the Rin character. I've said this before. I do like the Rin character. You haven't seen very much with Andorians on this show. When I say this show, I mean Star Trek, although that's not entirely true, because we got a lot of it on Enterprise with the Andorian commander there, played by Jeffrey Combs, who is an excellent actor, and who is Shran, who is excellent in that part. But he's like, up to this point, he's been the only Andorian we've ever really gotten anything from, other than a scene or two of like a one-dimensional Andorian from the original series. So I was glad to see the Rin character, and he had some good scenes in this episode. Then Michael argues with Stamets about, we can't jump away, or you can't send me out of the ship to protect me and keep me out of the hands of the Emerald Chain, because I need to be here so we can jump back to the Nebula to save, Culber and Adira and so forth. And she has to Vulcan neck pinch him to deal with it, to get him off the ship. And I was like, oh, now you done it. You made her break out the neck pinch. Jump to a scene where the Admiral is talking with Osiris about who's going to be, you know, the face of the Emerald Chain if they do create an alliance. And he says he or she, and I was just curious why he didn't say they. I'm not saying he should have said they, but I'm just saying, why didn't he? Because A, it would have been a shortcut, and B, the writers are so keen about all this gender stuff, you think they would have stayed away from writing a line that indicates that beings are that, you know, binary, that there's only the binary. I thought that was weird for a show that, you know, is trying to make a statement about that whole thing. And while we're on the subject, I think Oded Fehr is a great actor. He was great in the first Mummy movie. His subsequent appearances, you know, the movies were a little silly at that point, so he didn't come off as great, but that's more because of the material. He was great in the first one. He's one of my favorite actors. Then we're back on Discovery, and Stamets is... wait, why is this? I guess Stamets had, previous to being ejected from the ship, had tried to sort of reason with the scientist and the wheelchair guy, and it sort of seemed to take root, and I think he's gonna end up turning on Osiris, because she says some stuff in his presence on the bridge that he sort of thinks is, like, very not cool. You know how she's gonna, like, go to extremes to get her way. And then I wrote down, no, fuck, because she blows Rin away. Just blows him away. Cold-blooded murder. Very bad. Not happy. And I think she sealed her fate there with the scientist guy. I think he's going to turn on her. Back to Stamets. After having knocked him out, how Michael gets him off the ship is she encases him in like a field, a force field, and ejects him from the ship so that the Federation, you know, and the Starfleet ships will pick him up and bring him in. And I was wondering, why didn't she do that when she was trapped in the brig in the season, you know, the season premiere back in season 1? You know, she does that crazy thing where she jumps through open space. Why didn't she just use one of those things? Let me guess. The answer is because of the upgrade. That's going to be the answer for all kinds of stuff we're going to see in the coming seasons. However many they end up having. Oh, that's an upgrade. Oh, that's an upgrade. But they're never going to come out and say it. We just have to assume it. And then the robots finally show up. I talked about it a minute ago. The robots finally show up and say, we're going to help you. So I wrote down, the fuck? Oh, hell. So, yeah, the Sphere Data finally decided to take a stand in the fight, and it's taking over some of the bots, and it's going to help retake Discovery. So that'll be interesting. Next week looks action-packed, so I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to reflect on the full season with my next review after the season finale in some detail, but for the moment, I just want to say so far, it's the season finale almost, and I'm saying so far, I think this season is the weakest overall of all the seasons, you know, up to this point. At the beginning of the season, I thought they did a good job with the first couple episodes. It seemed more like Star Trek. It seemed like they were getting a handle on how to do Star Trek. And they have done a few things right this season. I thought some of the moments, you know, with the Georgiou departure were done really well. Of course, I loved that they brought back the Guardian of Forever. But this season, on aggregate, is just bad. I mean, when you think about the overall plot that's been driving the whole thing, it's just so lame. A thing happened, and the Federation fell apart, and we're going to investigate it. I mean, I'm saying this because we're so close to the end of the season, and I can't imagine anything coming out in the next episode that's going to be, like, mind-blowing. That's going to make this season powerful, or strong, even. Or better than meh. And this is not to say that prior seasons have been great, but at least in season 2 you had Pike, you had Spock, you had the Enterprise, and you had this Red Angel that was going to wipe out all of, you know, all sentient life, or all life, and it was sort of impactful. This is just, You know, I think it's the weakest season so far. In the first season you had, you know, Klingon War, and the Mirror Universe, which, I didn't like any of it at the time, but just in terms of scope, those 2 seasons were sort of a big deal. This was just such a wet fart in general, in terms of a season-long story arc. Very underwhelming. I don't know, I probably said everything I could say about the season on the whole already after saying I was going to do it next week. But I don't know, maybe next time I'll just restate what I just said and affirm it once I've seen the final episode, which again, I can't imagine is going to add anything to this that's going to make me go, wow, they really wrapped up the season in an impactful way and finally said something cool or important with the season. I can't imagine that's about to happen next week. So there you have it. Anyway, that's all I have for my review of episode 12 of season 3 of Discovery. So I will just again say peace and long life.